Hey everyone, Clio here, and today I'm going to go over kind of my progress where my reading goals for this year are concerned. So this is going to be a very informal, just sit down video. It's going to be very quick, hopefully. So as far as my 2020 goals go, the main goal for me, or the one that I take most seriously at this point in time, is to get rid of as many as possible of the unread books on these shelves. And with get rid of, I mean read. So I'm not necessarily getting rid of these, though I am at the end of each month deciding which books I'm going to get rid of that I didn't necessarily enjoy enough during that month, but it's very much the goal of just reading as many of those as possible. Before this year I had done like a huge unhaul in which I went through all of those books, kind of ordered them, decided on which one I would get rid of, or just purely based on a lack of interest and things like that. And there's still a line somewhere. I think this shelf probably has like the maybe books, the ones that I wasn't sure about, but in principle all of the books on there I do want to read. And so I started the year with 147 books on these shelves that I hadn't read yet, and at this point in time, so mid-July, we are at 120 books. So I've reduced it by 27 books at this point in time. So I do hope to be able to meet my casually set goal of 100 books, 100 unread books on these shelves, and then next year move on to 50 unread books on these shelves. But so yeah, I have been making steady progress with that, but I have also been buying quite a lot, so that has been checking my progress a little bit. So I have been trying since this month to not buy any more books and to kind of use my library and script as ways of getting to all the other books that I want to get to. But it is sometimes annoying because I want to read The Vanishing Half, for example, by Brit Bennett, but I just cannot get my hands on it in any of these formats. So I might have to buy it on my Kindle because I'm not really counting that, but then that's also somewhat counterproductive because when something lands on my Kindle, it often stays there forever, so we'll see. But so for that goal, I'm definitely on a roll. But then another one of the things I always do at the beginning of the year is set myself a sort of list of books that I want to get around to that year. And so this year I'd already reduced it to 12 books rather than the 20 that I did last year. But even then, I think I've gotten to 5 of those books. And I don't know, I'm not sure whether I want to continue with this next year. Part of the reason was because these were mostly books that have sat on those shelves for too long, and now that I'm doing that whole clearing out of the shelves thing, in principle I should be getting around to those types of books eventually. And I feel like I've made this list be a little bit of a daunting list. I'm always it always turns out that these books are relatively long, the ones that are on there, and the only ones that I'm actually getting around to are ones that are tied into other goals. So I don't know whether I'm continuing with that next year, but I will see where I get to by the end of the year. There might still be a lot of books that I do get around to later on in the year, I don't know. Then I also wanted to complete the Booker Prize shortlist for last year, maybe also for this year, but yeah, I cannot say anything about that yet because it hasn't been announced yet. So as of today, as of earlier this week, I have finished all books except for one on the shortlist and the long list. So the only book out of the long list and shortlist that I still need to read is Quixote by Salman Rushdie. I am going to read it this month because the long list for the Booker Prize 2020 is getting announced by the end of the month, so I want to be done with the Booker Prize for 2019 by that point. I will also at that point make a video all about my experience with the Booker Prize 2019, what I wanted to have seen on the shortlist and which book I thought would have won. I have also participated in the BookTube Prize this year. I have already participated in one round, but I should normally also be participating in the August-September round, which is the final round. So we'll see where that lands. It's possible that I have already read some books out of that list, and then my reading is going to be a bit lighter, but we'll see. What else? One of the major goals for me this year was to read more fantasy, and I do believe I have successfully done that. I didn't necessarily read the books that I set myself out to read. You know, I think I made a video about this in 2019. I will link it down below with like the fantasy sort of like TBR for 2020. And that was mainly going to be like fantasy series that I have on these shelves that I still needed to complete, and those I still need to get around to. And actually my plan was to get around to these this month, and as far as this month has been going, I've basically been reading everything except for the books that I set myself out to read this month. So we'll see where whether that ends up happening. But I have read a lot of fantasy that wasn't originally on the, like, that I hadn't originally set out to read. So I do feel like I've read quite some fantasy, and like my reading life this year has definitely been like fantasy and literary fiction heavy, rather than in previous years I felt like it was too much leaning towards the literary fiction side. I think that is it for my goals. Yeah, I think that are all of my goals that I had for my reading for 2020. So I've talked about all of those. I haven't reached all of them. Goodreads goal, I should probably also mention that. So I achieved my Goodreads goal of 52 books in May, I think. And as of yesterday, I am at 75 books this year, which is the highest amount of books I've ever read in a year. You know, in 2012 I read 75 books, which was my record up until now. So any book that I read starting today is going to break records for me. In terms of page count, I'm not there yet. I'm like 5,000 pages behind on 2012 when I read 75 books. So I definitely have been reading some shorter stuff, and that's definitely true because I started off January with all of the shorter books on my shelf, so everything under 200 pages. But I mean, 5,000 pages is like a month and a half for me to read, so I will definitely beat that record as well. And I actually hope to be able to get to some of the like longer stuff on my shelves as well. But so yeah, that is it for my reading goals. Definitely let me know down below how you're doing with your reading goals, and whether you have any like other goals than mine. I would be interested to learn about them, then maybe I'll incorporate them into my reading goals for next year. But so yeah, see you guys for the next one. Bye.